So let's take a look at the ZBrush Gizmo. To activate the Gizmo, we can go up to the top shelf and either click on the Move, Scale, or Rotate, or easier, just hit the W key for Move. Because with the Gizmo, you have access to Move, Scale, and Rotate all in one package. The Gizmo has only been around for about 3 years as of the making of this video. Before that, we had what was called the Transpose tool. If you hit the Y button or come up to this Gizmo3D button next to the Move, Scale, and Rotate on the top shelf, you'll see the original Move, Scale, and Rotate tool. This is called the Transpose line. And previous to having the Gizmo, this was the sole way to move, scale, and rotate your model. In ZBrush 4R8, they created the Gizmo to give users of other 3D packages a more familiar way to do these functions inside of ZBrush. The transpose line still has quite a few functions that are useful, but for right now, we're going to stick to the Gizmo3D. So I'm going to activate that here, and let's undo back to our previous state. And I'm going to turn on the transparency so that we can see the sphere inside of this cube. Now, the first thing you might notice is that the Gizmo that I have on my screen probably looks different than the one that you have. This is because this is a custom-made Gizmo. If you want to change the Gizmo, you simply go up to Preferences, down to Gizmo3D, and you can click this Next Gizmo button, or if you want to go back to the normal Gizmo, you can click Reset, and it will give you the default Gizmo. If we look at some of these other Gizmos, we have a selection of different layouts. They all do the same thing functionally, but they just have a different layout for how you want to work. This is one that I've created myself. We'll go into how to create a Gizmo in the customization chapters later on in this series. So let's go ahead and change this to the default Gizmo, and I'm going to switch to this Cube 3D. So let's take a look at the controls. These outer white arrows will allow you to move your object along the picture plane. This outer ring allows you to rotate on your picture plane. All of these controls work from the center of the Gizmo. This yellow box in the center is our uniform scale. And if we rotate a little bit here, these colored arrows and boxes all function to do similar things along a given axis, such as moving along the object's y-axis, scaling along the y-axis, or rotating. You can do the same things on the x-axis and the z-axis. Now, if you'll notice, our Gizmo has stayed locked onto the original axes of this box, not the world z-axis, y-axis, or x-axis. If I want to return the Gizmo and the object to world center, what I can do is first click on this Reset Mesh Orientation button at the top, and then click the Mesh to Axis, which will return this to our world center. It doesn't undo the scaling that we've done, but it undoes the rotation and the moving. Let's go ahead and undo that. If we only want to reset the Gizmo so that it's facing the world X, Y, and Z axes, we have to hold the Alt button and then click the Reset Orientation. Or we can come up and click this Lock button here, which unlinks the gizmo from the object. Then we can click this Reset Orientation, and ZBrush will only reset the orientation of the gizmo so that we're back to Z forward position. Then I can lock my gizmo again to relink it to my object and continue to make changes. So you'll often find yourself wanting to reset your gizmo, and the easiest way to do that is simply hold Alt and tap this reset, and you can reset the gizmo without affecting your object. If I wish for the gizmo to be in a different location rather than in the center of the object, I can hold Alt to unlink the gizmo and then move this to wherever I want by grabbing the arrows. I can even rotate it if I want. Once the gizmo is unlinked, these controls are simply used to move the gizmo around. I can return the gizmo to world center, reset the positioning, and since everything works around the gizmo center, now my move, scale, and rotate are going to have a different effect than they did before. Let's go ahead and undo back to the very beginning here. And let's look a little bit closer at these icons on the top of the gizmo. The gear icon we'll be covering in a later chapter on gizmo deformations. When you click on this, you get access to other meshes that can replace the mesh that you currently have or be added to the mesh depending on masking. And you get access to a large number of what are called deformers. These we'll be covering in a separate chapter. The pin icon here activates sticky mode, which allows you to move and then have the gizmo snap back to its pinned position. There are a few uses for this that we'll cover in an upcoming chapter. Let's unclick the pin icon. This location icon will send the gizmo to the mesh center. Let me undo that. If I have a mask on my object and I click the location icon, it's going to go to the unmasked mesh center. Clear the mask. If I click this home button, it's going to move the gizmo to the world center. So if you want to get the object and the gizmo back to world center and your gizmo is off somewhere else, you could simply reset the gizmo by holding Alt and clicking on the reset, then holding Alt, click on the location icon to go to mesh center, and then finally let go of Alt and click on the home icon. And that will get you back to world center. The last icon on the right side is our multi-select or single select icon. So what I'll do here is move this over. I'm going to turn off transparency and zoom back a little bit. And if I click on this icon, you're going to see it turns from a single checkbox to 3 checkboxes vertically. This now activates our multi-select where we can move, scale, and rotate multiple subtools all together. Let me undo and go back. If we have even more subtools in our list, I can come in and append, say, this ring 3D, select it here, go back to single selection, and move that out. Now we have 3 objects. And if I go back to my box by Alt and tapping on the box to select it, I can click on the multi-select and rotate all 3 or move and scale them. I can also hold Control and Shift and tap on a subtool that I want to move, leaving the others with these horizontal bars through them to denote that they are inactive. Then I can simply move the selected subtool. I can select more than one of these by simply holding Control, Shift, and tapping on them. If I come over and tap on the canvas, I can reverse that selection and then select the ones that I want active and change their orientation or scaling to suit whatever needs I have. When you're in multi-select mode and you're done with your transformations, it's always a good idea to Control Shift and drag on the canvas to clear those selections before going back to single selection mode. Otherwise, it can cause some issues. There are several other functions that we can do with the gizmo. But for now, let's look at an alternative scaling method that we can do with the axis scale controls. So let's say I want to scale in 2 axes equally and not the third axis. So I don't want to do a uniform scale, and I don't want to do a single scale. I want to do 2. What you can do is go to the control for the axis that you don't want to scale along. And then you can press and drag and then hold Alt to scale only in the other 2 axes. So again, that is, go to the scale axis of the direction you don't want to scale in, start your scaling, and then hold Alt to scale in the other 2 directions. One last thing, we can constrain our rotations to 5-degree increments by holding the Shift key. We can also do that if the model is, say, up here. We'll scale that down a little bit. And then I'll reset my gizmo to world center by holding Alt and clicking on the home button. And then from here, I can rotate around this axis and hold Shift and get that same 5-degree increment rotation.